Hi, I am Matt, a developer from Ohio, and in this video, I'll be walking you through the Sass bar chart project. To complete this project, you'll need to be familiar with CSS, the SCSS basics like nesting variables and mixins, and some new SCSS concepts like functions, loops, and conditionals. Let's get started. In this project, we're going to be creating a bar chart with only SCSS. We're going to need variables, functions, and loops. Let's start by taking a look at this variable in our SCSS document, top foods. Each of these items in this list is going to be one of our data points. In index.html, instead of our body, we're going to add 10 rectangle elements. One of these rectangle elements is going to be one of the bars of data. We're also going to add a heading to our chart. You can just copy and paste in the text from the instruction. Now, let's move to our SCSS. We're going to start by making an each loop that gets a food and a number of tons produced from each of the items in our top foods array. Food will be one of these strings, like corn or rice, and tons produced will be one of these numbers, like 1017 or 738. Before we start with any logic, we're going to want to save the index of whichever element we're looking at. We're going to save the index to a variable called I. We're going to get the index using the SCSS function index. We're looking through top foods, which is our array up here, and the element we're getting is food and tons produced. So again, that's the index of this element, which is a pair of a word and a number, from this variable, which is top foods, our array of data points. Now we're ready to start applying rules to one of our rectangles. We're going to select the rectangle by using rect nth child. We'll start a string, and we'll pass in the index number plus 1. What nth child is doing is basically the same as what index is doing, except instead of picking a point from this list, it's picking a point from this list. The reason we use plus 1 here is because h1 here is the first child, so our first rectangle is the second child, plus 1. First thing we're going to do to our rectangles is assign a height based on their number of tons produced. So we're going to start a string, add in the number of tons produced. We're going to divide this by 3 to make them a little bit smaller to fit on our page. And we're going to add px to make this a pixel unit. We can display the name of the food we're talking about by using the before pseudo element. With content, we can add food, which is a word, before our bar. We can also include the written number of tons produced using the after pseudo element. In the after content, we'll add the number of tons produced, and we'll add the m suffix for million. Now we're going to add some color to our bars. The way we're going to do this is that the first, fourth, and seventh bars are going to be one color. The second, fifth, and eighth bars are going to be one color, and the rest of our bars are going to be the third color. So we're basically going through 3 colors and then starting from the beginning again once we get to number 4. We're going to use modulo to achieve this. We'll start with if, use our index variable, and modulo 3, and if that equals 0, we will do the first color. Now we're going to do basically the same thing for the other 2 possibilities, which are if modulo 3 is 1, or if modulo 3 is 2. Well, that modulo is basically a remainder. So 3 modulo 3 is 0, but 4 modulo 3 is 1, because when you divide 4 by 3, you have a remainder of 1. Now we can start to actually add our colors. So we'll use the background color rule, and each one of these will be set to one of our colors defined up here. So our first one will be diamond blue, and our second, sea green, and our third background color will be pale green. We're going to make this a little bit more complicated by using the fade out function. You can use that exactly how it's written over here. Basically, all this is doing is using the index of our element to fade out the background color more the further on we get. So a higher index times 5 is going to be closer to 100, and therefore a higher number, and it'll fade out a little bit more. You can see that this is what our page looks like before adding that fade. This is what our page looks like after adding the fade. Notice how everything is lighter on this end because these elements have a higher index. In this project, we created a functional and stylus bar graph using only SCSS functions. You can use what you learned in this project to integrate content and data-driven visuals into your own projects. I've been Matt from Codecademy. Happy coding!